I crashed at my friend's place. Her dad wasn't supposed to be home. I was standing in my best friend's kitchen at 7 in the morning, wearing nothing but an oversized t-shirt and underwear, when I heard footsteps coming down the stairs. My heart stopped. Emma was still asleep upstairs, and her mom was supposed to be in Portland for the weekend. The divorce papers were finalized 3 months ago. Her dad wasn't supposed to be here. But there he was, David Chen, 43 years old, stopping mid-step when he saw me frozen by the coffee maker. His hair was messier than I remembered, stubble covering his jaw, and he looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. We stared at each other for what felt like forever, and I watched something shift in his expression, surprise melting into something I couldn't quite name. "Mia?" His voice was softer than it used to be. "I didn't know you were here." Before I continue this, hit that subscribe button. I post one real story every single day. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? I'm always curious who my stories are reaching. I grabbed the kitchen towel and held it in front of me, like it would somehow make this less awkward. "Mr. Chen, I'm so sorry. Emma said you wouldn't be back until Monday." My voice came out smaller than I intended. He rubbed his forehead, and I noticed how tired his eyes looked. "Change of plans. The apartment felt too..." He trailed off, then seemed to remember I was barely dressed. "Let me grab you something." Before I could protest, he disappeared upstairs and came back with one of his old University of Washington hoodies. It smelled like cedar and something distinctly him, warm and safe in a way that made my chest tight. "Thank you," I whispered, pulling it over my head. It fell to mid-thigh, and I felt his eyes follow the movement before he quickly looked away. "Coffee?" he asked, already reaching for another mug. I nodded, and we moved around each other in the kitchen with careful politeness. But there was something different about him. The Mr. Chen I remembered from high school was always laughing, always telling dad jokes that made Emma groan. This man seemed hollowed out, like someone had taken the light from behind his eyes. "How have you been, Mia?" He handed me the coffee, and our fingers brushed. The contact sent electricity up my arm. "Emma mentioned you finished your master's degree." "Yeah, environmental science. I'm working for a nonprofit now." I wrapped my hands around the warm mug. "How are you holding up?" He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "That's a loaded question." I studied his face, the way his shoulders carried tension, how his smile didn't quite reach his eyes anymore. Growing up, Mr. Chen had been the dad who drove us to concerts, who taught me how to change a tire when I turned 16, who never made me feel like I was just Emma's annoying friend. Now he looked lost. "Emma doesn't talk about it much," I said carefully. "Smart girl. Nothing to talk about, really. 20 years of marriage, and apparently I was never really there." He took a long sip of coffee. "According to my ex-wife, anyway." Something in his voice made my heart ache. "That's not true." He looked at me sharply. "You don't know what you're talking about, Mia." "Maybe not about your marriage," I said, surprising myself with my boldness. "But I know you were always there for Emma, and for me, when I needed it." The silence stretched between us, thick with unspoken words. Rain started pattering against the windows, classic Seattle morning weather, and I realized how intimate this felt. Just the two of us in this kitchen where I'd eaten countless breakfasts growing up, but everything was different now. "You've grown up," he said quietly, his eyes meeting mine over his coffee mug. I felt heat creep up my neck. "It's been 7 years since high school, Mr. Chen." "David," he corrected, "you're not 17 anymore." The way he said it made something flutter in my stomach. I set down my mug before I could drop it. "I should probably go wake Emma. She's always been a heavy sleeper. Remember when you two had that sleepover and played music until 3 a.m.? I came up to tell you to turn it down, and she was dead to the world while you were still dancing around in your pajamas." I laughed despite myself. "You just stood there shaking your head at me?" "You were so full of life," he said, and there was something wistful in his voice. "You still are?" Our eyes met across the kitchen island, and I felt the air change between us. This wasn't the safe, paternal affection I remembered. This was something else entirely, something that made my pulse race and my skin feel too tight. David, I started, but I didn't know how to finish. I know, he said quietly. I know this is... Footsteps thundered down the stairs, and we jumped apart like we'd been caught doing something wrong. Emma burst into the kitchen, her dark hair a mess, wearing striped pajamas. Dad? She stopped short, looking between us with confusion. What are you doing here? Good morning to you too, sweetheart. David's voice was carefully neutral, but I caught the slight tremor in it. I came back early, wanted to grab some of my books. Emma's expression softened slightly. Oh, I thought you were supposed to stay at the apartment this weekend. Plans change. He rinsed his coffee mug in the sink, his movements sharp and controlled. I'll be out of your hair soon. Dad, you don't have to. It's fine, Em. He kissed the top of her head as he passed. You girls have fun. I'll be upstairs packing. After he left, Emma turned to me with raised eyebrows. That was weird, right? He seemed off. I busied myself making fresh coffee, hoping she couldn't see the flush in my cheeks. He's probably just adjusting to everything. Yeah, maybe. Emma grabbed a banana from the counter. God, this divorce has been such a mess. Mom's being impossible, and Dad's just, I don't know. He's like a ghost of himself. I wanted to say something comforting, but my thoughts kept drifting to the way David had looked at me, the electricity when our hands touched, the way he'd said my name like it meant something. We spent the morning watching Netflix and gossiping about Emma's new job, but I kept listening for sounds from upstairs. Around noon, David came down with a box of books in a duffel bag. That's it? Emma asked, looking at the small pile of belongings. For now. He hefted the box. I'll come back for the rest another time. Why don't you stay for lunch? I was going to make grilled cheese, your favorite. David's smile was pained. Thanks, sweetheart, but I should go. As he headed for the door, something made me speak up. David, wait. Both he and Emma looked at me in surprise. I didn't know what I was going to say until the words tumbled out. You look like you could use some company. Why don't you let me help you move the rest of your stuff? Emma has that work thing this afternoon anyway. Emma nodded enthusiastically. That's perfect. Mia's really strong. She helped me move my entire apartment last year. David's eyes found mine, searching. You don't have to do that. I want to, I said, and I meant it. Something passed between us, a silent question, an answer that made my stomach flip. He nodded slowly. Okay. If you're sure. An hour later, I was sitting in David's Honda Civic, watching the Seattle skyline blur past the passenger window. The silence between us felt charged, like the air before a thunderstorm. You really don't have to help, he said, glancing at me. I know this is probably the last thing you want to do with your Saturday. It's not, I said honestly. I meant what I said earlier, about you being there for me. His hands tightened on the steering wheel. Mia. When my parents got divorced my sophomore year, you're the one who drove me home when I was crying in your driveway. You didn't ask questions, didn't try to fix anything. You just sat with me until I was ready to go inside. I saw his throat work as he swallowed. You were just a kid going through a hard time. I wasn't that much younger than I am now. You were 17. There's a difference. I turned in my seat to face him. What difference? He pulled into the parking lot of a modest apartment complex and put the car in park, but didn't move to get out. When he looked at me, his expression was pained. The difference is that now when I look at you, I don't see Emma's friend. I see a beautiful, intelligent woman who makes me forget that I'm a 43-year-old man whose life just fell apart. My breath caught. David, that's the difference, Mia. That's why this is wrong. We stared at each other in the small space of the car, and I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. I reached out and touched his arm, feeling the warmth of his skin through his sleeve. What if it doesn't feel wrong? I whispered. His eyes closed, and he leaned his head back against the headrest. God, Mia, you have no idea what you're doing to me. What would you do if you were in my place? Tell me in the comments. I could have pulled my hand away, could have laughed it off, made a joke about the awkwardness of the situation. Instead, I unbuckled my seatbelt and leaned closer to him. Then tell me, I said. His eyes opened, dark and intense. Tell you what? What I'm doing to you. For a moment, I thought he might actually answer. His gaze dropped to my lips, and I felt the air between us crackle with possibility. Then he seemed to remember himself, and he gently caught my wrist. "We should go upstairs," he said, his voice rough. "Get this over with." His apartment was sparse, a furnished one-bedroom that looked like a temporary landing place rather than a home. There were boxes everywhere, books scattered on every surface, and the kind of impersonal decor that came with monthly rentals. "It's not much," he said, following my gaze around the space. "It's honest," I said. "Better than pretending everything's fine." He looked at me with something like surprise. "Is that what you think I was doing? Pretending? Weren't you?" I picked up a framed photo of Emma from high school graduation. "All those years, were you happy?" David was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Finally, he said, "I thought I was. I thought if I worked hard enough, provided well enough, kept everyone safe and comfortable, that would be enough. But apparently, I was wrong." I set down the photo and turned to face him. "You know what I think?" "What?" "I think you were so busy taking care of everyone else that you forgot to take care of yourself. And now you're punishing yourself for something that wasn't entirely your fault." His laugh was bitter. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I?" I stepped closer to him. "You're a good man, David. You always have been. The fact that your marriage ended doesn't change that. Mia, please. Please what? Please stop telling you the truth? Please stop looking at you like you matter?" Something in his composure cracked. "Please stop making this harder than it already is." I reached up and touched his face, feeling the rough stubble under my palm. "What if I don't want to? You're Emma's best friend. You're 25 years old. You're what? Too old for me, too broken, too scared?" "All of the above," he said, but he didn't pull away from my touch. "I don't care about any of that." "You should." "But I don't." I stood on my tiptoes, bringing my face closer to his. "I care about the way you look at me like I'm something precious. I care about how you make me feel safe and excited and terrified all at once. I care about you, David, not Mr. Chen, not Emma's dad. You." His resistance finally crumbled. He cupped my face in his hands and kissed me, and it was nothing like I'd imagined. It was desperate and gentle and hungry all at once, like he was trying to memorize the feel of me against him. When we broke apart, we were both breathing hard. "This is crazy," he whispered against my forehead. "I know. Emma will never forgive us." "Maybe not. I'm too old for you." "I don't care." He pulled back to look at me, his thumbs tracing my cheekbones. "What do you want from me, Mia?" It was such a loaded question. What did I want? I wanted him to stop looking so lost. I wanted to erase the sadness from his eyes. I wanted to explore this feeling between us, wherever it led. "I want you to stop pushing me away," I said. "I want you to stop thinking you don't deserve good things. I trailed off, suddenly unsure. "What?" he prompted gently. "I want you to kiss me again." He smiled then, the first real smile I'd seen from him all day. "I can do that." This time when he kissed me, it was slower, deeper. His hands tangled in my hair, and I pressed closer to him, feeling the solid warmth of his chest against mine. When his phone rang, we both ignored it. When it rang again, he reluctantly pulled away. "It's Emma," he said, looking at the screen. Reality crashed back over us. Emma, his daughter, my best friend. What were we doing? David must have seen the panic in my expression because he caught my hands in his. "Hey," he said softly, "we don't have to figure this all out right now." "But Emma doesn't have to know anything until we decide what this is." I nodded, trying to calm my racing heart. "What is this?" "I don't know," he admitted, "but I'd like to find out. If you're willing to take this slow, see where it goes." His phone rang again, and this time he answered. "Hey, sweetheart. Yeah, we're fine, just packing." He listened for a moment, his eyes on mine. "Actually, it's taking longer than expected. Mia might not make it back until later." After he hung up, I raised an eyebrow at him. Buying us time? Giving us options. He pulled me closer. We could spend the afternoon packing boxes and pretending this didn't happen. Or, or, or we could order takeout, talk, and see if this feeling between us is real. I looked around the sparse apartment, then back at his hopeful, uncertain face. 3 hours ago, I'd been Emma's friend helping her dad move boxes. Now I was standing in his arms, my heart full of possibilities I'd never considered. Okay, I said, let's see if it's real. His smile was radiant. Yeah? Yeah, but David? What? Next time you kiss me, don't look so guilty about it. He laughed, and for the first time since I'd known him, he looked genuinely happy. Deal. Before I go, thank you. These stories are real, they're mine, and I share one every day. If you want to hear more, subscribe. 6 months later, I'm writing this from our apartment. Yes, our apartment in Capitol Hill. Emma knows now. It took her a while to come around, and there were some painful conversations. But she's starting to understand that sometimes life surprises you in the most unexpected ways. David and I are taking it day by day, building something real and solid and beautiful out of the most unlikely circumstances. Sometimes the best things in life happen when you least expect them. Sometimes love finds you in your best friend's kitchen at 7 in the morning, wearing nothing but an oversized t-shirt and the courage to see someone clearly. Sometimes the person who's been part of your story all along becomes the most important chapter yet.